Hey gang, thanks for joining us for the Lionel Racing 2021 season kickoff. We're going to be talking about diecast during this show, and who better to talk about diecast with than our very own CEO of Lionel, Howard Hitchcock. Howard, are you excited about the 2021 season kickoff?
I am, Thomas. Thank you. 2021, after coming off 2020 with the year where we ended with Chase as the champion, and all of the craziness that sort of was going on with COVID. I mean, we're not out of COVID yet, right? So we still have a lot of protocols and stuff. But to get the cars back on track, just the excitement around racing, to be able to see what the season brings us, and with all of the changes and the challenges and gearing up for 2022, which I know we're going to touch on a little bit later. Mm-hmm. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. It's only a couple days away for Daytona.
Couple days, I can't wait. So we're going to be talking about a bunch of the 2021 diecast, so you want to stay tuned. So talking about the 2021 diecast, we've got a lot of changes since 2020. I mean, you have Chase Elliott, has a little bit of a new paint scheme, but we're talking about the defending champ now going into this year, being the most popular driver even, and taking that torch from Dale Jr. What does that mean, having him carry that torch to diecast and just to the industry as a whole?
Well, Thomas, as you know, having the most popular driver who is the champion from a business perspective is an awesome experience, right? Because all drivers are important to us and obviously important to the sport. And we have fans across the entire spectrum of drivers and teams. But when you talk about Chase Elliott, with the pedigree, his dad, Bill Elliott, second generation driver who has a very strong, very loyal, and very large fan base. When we experience a championship with that, we sell a lot of cars, to be honest. And so having the defending champion as the most popular driver is great for the business. And so we love it from the fact that we can obviously make a lot of cars. It does give us some creative opportunities in some other types of cars that we put out, whether they be fantasy schemes or maybe sort of sets of things, in celebration. But it's a big thing for diecast. And to, like I said, Dale Jr. used to move the needle when he was the most popular driver. Chase is no different. And each time we kind of cycle through whoever that most popular driver is, we get to see a range of sales that is a little bit outside of the norm. So having that guy is really important as the champion.
Oh, I think it's really unique too that these guys who have the family tradition in the sport. I mean, you had Dale Sr., you had Dale Jr., you had Bill Elliott, now you got Chase Elliott.
Yep. And
even just released that new family tradition car, the diecast that we just released with that family tradition car. That's really cool. The two-sided car. It's really cool. So I think it speaks volumes for the sport, for diecast industry, just to have that family tradition continue.
Yeah, I mean, this sport is a legacy family sport, right? And you go back and you look at the drivers over the course of history, and there are so many that the Allisons and on and on and on, right? It just the Jarretts. I mean, you could just sit there and talk about it. You look at the Hall of Fame and you really see it, right? It's the Hall of Famers. And so like I said, Chase definitely represents the young up and comers. He got to the championship pretty rapidly in terms of his Cup career, and now to have him as the most popular driver, active driver, as the champion is truly awesome for the sport.
So Howard, also for 2021, we even have all these new personalities coming into NASCAR from outside the sport. You got the best basketball player, hands down, Michael Jordan, joining forces with Bubba Wallace, and then you also got Pitbull at Trackhouse Racing as well.
Yeah, I think it really goes to the efforts that NASCAR has put into being more inclusive in the overall sport, right? And to see legends in their industry to come into the sport and invest as ownership. 2311, the Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan team with Bubba Wallace. We've already released a couple of cars, so they're out on pre-order right now. Good looking stuff there. And then, of course, Trackhouse Racing with Daniel Suarez, Mr. Worldwide, 305, right? Yeah. He's in, and we got a couple of cars coming soon on that one. So, yeah, it's really cool to have this infusion of energy that's very, very different from what we've seen in the past. And now we've got this infusion of newness that I think does bring eyes from outside the sport potentially eyes to a category like ours, which is diecast, which are the replica cars.
Bringing a new fan base. I mean, we've seen
Absolutely.
that. We're seeing that growth already. And Bubba Wallace is already selling really well with the DoorDash and those new track cars. Once they release, I think they'll do really well. It's just bringing in new clientele, different people into the sport, which is really good.
Yeah, and it's it's kind of an opportunity to educate at the same time, because in reality there are new fans coming in that don't really perhaps understand our sport completely or why we do certain things that happen. I mean, obviously racing is pretty straightforward in the green flag go and that kind of thing, but there are nuances to how the start, at a caution, the lucky dog type situation, right? Those are things that you might not understand as a new fan. Even some of the aspects of the car, quite honestly, like what are those things that flip up on the top and why does that happen, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's roof flaps, and that helps with the downforce, obviously. We know that. Our fans probably know that. But a new fan might not. So there's kind of this educational opportunity. There's this exposure to new fans, which is great. We do sell mass diecast, and there's always been an influx of young and newer fans in that space. The 64 scales are a little bit more approachable in price point. There's a great diversity of cars there too. So it really is an opportunity to talk to a whole bunch of different people.
So on a similar note, you also have a lot of driver changes for 2021. You have Bubba Wallace in the 23. You also have Kyle Larson in the number 5 and several others. What does that mean for diecast sales and just as the sport as it continues to grow as well?
Well, newness in general, whether that be paint scheme or team change or driver number change, has always been good for diecast. So we always see sort of an uptick in sales because people are excited to get the new stuff, right? Well, whatever the new stuff is. I think potentially it also is interesting for their careers, right? So there's different resources, different combinations of driver crew chief. Different organizations react differently, right? And so, we've seen it before. We've seen drivers change teams and become really, really successful, or opposite. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but opposite, they don't quite mesh with the team. But I think from a diecast sales perspective, we already know there's been a lot of demand for the 2311 car, with Bubba Wallace. So we know that there's a lot of activity there. That's exciting. We've heard a lot of good things about Trackhouse Racing. Kyle Larson in the 5 at Hendrick has been a really good thing. So that car, which had run years ago and then kind of went into retirement or semi-retirement and now is back out, is a good thing. So I think new is great. I think it brings up some interesting stuff to talk about and interesting stuff to watch when it actually starts racing.
Hey, so next we're going to talk about questions that were submitted on Twitter, and we appreciate everyone who submitted them. We're going to try to get to as many as we can, but we have some we want to talk about now. The first one is talking about the 2021 spoilers on the Chevy and the Fords. You remember last year there was a slight change, so they're asking about that. Can you kind of elaborate on that change and what that means for 2021?
Yeah, last year we really weren't aware of the change going into the season. Sometimes little adjustments that they make to make racing better on track does not always get relayed directly to us. And so we kind of went into the season with cars as they were. And so we had a stockpile of parts that essentially we kind of had to use. And so we did through the season. The good news is we got through them. So this year, the production teams worked really hard to make sure that our cars are accurate. So we'll be using the more accurate spoiler this time, this season. So we're excited about that. So that's little changes to happen to the car as it evolves.
Well, I didn't give a shout out to him. His name was Gavin. We appreciate your question.
Thanks,
Hopefully
Gavin.
that's good news. You heard it from the CEO first. Spoilers will be right 2021. The next question comes from Josh. He wants to know why he can't really ever find the NASCAR Authentics in his store locally. And so we've talked about this before, and that's a really big topic with NASCAR Authentics. And can you kind of go over the Cliff Notes version of, what is Lionel Racing's role in the distribution of the NASCAR Authentics diecast?
Absolutely. So we make our products in what we call waves or mixes. And that's a case of essentially 10 cars, if we're talking about the 64 scale car with the trinket. And we supply those to the distribution centers for the mass majors. So your Walmart and your Target and some other regional shops. And then from there, the distribution centers distribute down to the local doors, your local store. So wherever that is in your hometown. And that product gets fed in based on a store plan or a planogram. And so within a retail environment, there's A, B, C, D stores, and they have a different cycle of how many cars go in and the trigger points. So an A store might say they should have 20 cars on peg, and if they don't, then that triggers a reorder in the system. And essentially then a box gets shipped in, and then that gets put out onto the floor to replenish the stock because of the rate of sale. There's lots of little things that can happen in the inventory process. Unfortunately, if a box got misplaced or accidentally not put on a shelf, the store might think the inventory is actually there, the computer system. It may not be, and that may not trigger a reorder, and so you might wind up on an empty peg. Loss is another thing, so either damage or loss if cars got maybe wet, if they were in the receiving dock and never got out, and never got damaged out, or unfortunately got taken. That could make the system think there's inventory available. The other thing we've seen happen, honestly, is a lot of our mass collectors are completionists. So what they do is they come in and they buy the whole wave out. So it might go out and not be gone, right? I mean, we've actually heard stories where people just will buy the whole case, like it doesn't even get unpacked, right? They just go up to the register with the whole box. So I can't really explain exactly why your store doesn't have the particular items. You could potentially go to your store manager and ask them to check the inventory system. They may, now that we're not in fourth quarter, they may be able to do that. But it really is controlled by the store chain, the distribution from the warehouse to that. We essentially just fulfill to the warehouse.
I think that's the biggest confusion. A lot of people really believe that Lionel Racing goes to Walmart and says, hey, you need to restock this, you need to restock this.
Yeah, we can see activity at door level, but we really don't have the ability to trigger inventory placement at the door level. And so unfortunately, that really is an internal system to whether it be Walmart or Target or Meijer or any of those type stores.
Okay. Continuing on with NASCAR Authentics, we also got Noah, who really wants to see a NASCAR Authentics brand in Canada.
So we don't really have big distribution in Canada at this point. We are always working with the Canadian retailers to try to get into that space. In the past, we've had the mass retail cars up in Canada. A lot of the chains up there they're not the same buying offices, so they make their own buying decisions. But I can't really say that there's anything on the radar right now. The pushes to online, and I know a lot of Canadians will buy stuff online from the U.S. And I know you get into the border and customs and those different things, but at this point, I can't say there's any solution to that. We are always looking for expanded distribution, particularly in Canada, and so we'll continue to push there.
And the last question is from Victor. He's really curious about the sprint car we kind of teased, and now they really everybody's really jazzed about it, so they're just questioning now where are we at in the tooling process and the whole process of the new sprint car. Yeah,
COVID you hate to blame anything on COVID, but COVID has thrown everything for a little bit of a loop in our processes, right? And same with our factories. They had actually left for Chinese New Year and went on vacation, and then COVID struck there overseas, and so moving engineers around and getting factories refocused on production and different things it really in 2020 was some of our biggest challenges. And I think honestly, given the hurdles, things went pretty well. There were, however, a couple of casualties to that, right? And so developmental projects did take a little bit of a back seat. And so the sprint car, where we had originally expected that we would sort of be getting into market at this point, just simply didn't. Good news, we have the tool underway. So we've seen the model. We've actually approved the model. And it is now in the process of having steel cut so that we can actually do our first round of test shots, and ultimately get to a finished product. The good news is with today's technology, usually there's not a lot of tweaking once you get to the first shots. I think we'll see those probably in early summer. So once we have the test shots, we have to develop a template to do the art and then put that into the process. We have a couple of paint schemes that are actually kind of waiting for that. Okay. So potentially, we're probably looking at a Q4 delivery on a handful of paint schemes this year. Okay.
So definitely offering, we hope, definitely offering in 2021 if everything goes well.
Barring any unforeseen circumstances, I would say that we're pretty well underway. We've gotten past the major hurdles. We are cutting steel at this point. So now, we're going back into Chinese New Year again. So things kind of stop again for about 4 weeks. And we don't really know what the pattern of return is going to be this year, because there's, just like COVID restrictions here, there's COVID restrictions over there. And there it's pretty specific about wait times and how long you have to stay. If you've traveled, how long you have to stay in quarantine. And it's much more rigorous than it is sort of here in the US. So we'll see. We're expecting that it'll be about a 4-week sort of break. But when they return, we'll be working on the steel, like I said, which ultimately leads us to the test shots.
Yeah.
And then hopefully to some production.
That's exciting stuff, because I know that's been a big question on the racing forum as well. It's been a big question and a lot of interest there. And
yeah, so it's been a challenge. Resources are always something that you're fighting with, and early last year we thought we were going to be dealing with a new car this year for the Cup Series, which took some of the priority, and then COVID came along. So lots of things have changed as we started off, right? So it's good news is I think we're well underway.
Good. So that leads us perfectly into the 22 NASCAR Next Gen car. There's a lot of talk about that. Can you give some insight as to where we're at in that process?
Yeah, we've, as I indicated, kind of in the last round, we were actually working with Racing Development, NASCAR Tech, last year on starting to get the details around the new car, which we thought was going to be in 2021. And of course, that delay was discussed shortly after COVID struck the US. Just so that they had enough time to get all the testing and development done in the right way and make sure that they were good. Just recently, within the last week or so, they've really kind of said, we're done developing. The drivers have had good input. The drivers have approved. What people have seen out there is sort of a generic car at this point. It's not OEM specific. It was purpose built as a test car so that it could prove out the concept of the car. And this is the most radical tooling undertaking that we've had. It literally is ground up new chassis, new wheels, new tires. Typically in all of our other conversions, COT, everything we've done in the past, we've always been able to sort of utilize different parts,
spare parts or whatever.
Yeah. And so this is really completely different.
So what you're saying is what we're going to build is going to be new from ground up, like you said, tires, wheels, chassis. I mean, that is that's a big change. That's
as we understand it. Yeah. So we're still very much in the process of putting the parts and pieces together. We've had the CAD data for a while. We have the OEM specific data, which is the Chevy, Ford, and Toyota body, which that has not been unveiled yet. The public unveiling is still up in the air as to when exactly that's going to occur. It will be later this year, and I assume there will be quite a bit of fanfare that goes along with that. That's what we're sort of hearing. So we're well in process with that. We're reviewing models as we speak, looking at different sort of options and configurations for the car. We're super excited about it because this is a true departure. I mean, it's a departure of significant magnitude and significant investment on our part. But from what we hear from the NASCAR Tech guys, the drivers who have tested it and driven it in different tracks, really expect great things out of the car. Should make a great experience on track, giving the fans an awesome racing experience. Hopefully helps deliver to the teams some cost savings to make everybody a little bit more comparable. But it's a cool looking car. I mean, there are going to be some pretty distinct changes to it. The way it's built, I don't want to give away anything that I'm not allowed to give away. So I'm sort of trying to dance around little parts and pieces of what's been released and what's not been released. Yeah, because that's we sign up under an NDA to not reveal that information. But so yeah, we've been working on it for a long time.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and throw my own question out there since we're talking about it real quick. Right. So kind of throw a loop in there. But so we're talking about that car because I know the next question after this releases, they're going to be asking, so will we see any delays? If everything goes through as what we have and stuff like that, do we think we're going to hopefully deliver January, February, March, at least some initially? depending on artwork and all that. Do we foresee any delays in the product being made?
Based on our schedule
production?
right now, no.
Okay.
We feel pretty confident that we will have cars available for the season kickoff of 2022. Right. Now, there's been lots of talk about schedule too, right? So I didn't say Daytona because I'm not sure where that's going to be.
Right.
But assuming wherever season kickoff is, assuming it sits in a roughly the same time period of the year, we do expect that we'll be in good shape. We should have product available. Part of that is contingent upon paint schemes and other things, of course, too. We have to have delivered from the teams, but we haven't really delivered a whole lot of 2021 yet. So we'll get through that. We'll work on that. But no, the structure of the car, I feel pretty confident will be in good shape and ready for the 22 season.
Awesome. Great news. Fans, thank you so much for tuning in to our 2021 NASCAR kickoff. And Howard, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
For final send-off, what do you have to add? What are you really excited about? What do you look forward to into the 2021 NASCAR world? What do you think is going to be big this year?
Well, there's so much to choose from. You know, normally we'd be getting ready to head down there. We're not this year, which is first time in, gosh, well over a decade, right? For you as well. You know, there's so much new. There's so much energy. We talked about, you know, some of the driver changes. Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson, you know, in their respective things, new team arrangements, new teams coming in, an investment and infusion of interest from outside of the sport. I think that's really cool. I think that brings, you know, a whole new fan base, as we kind of touched on. NASCAR's done some awesome work with reconfigured tracks or road courses. Bristol with dirt, in the Cup Series.
Awesome.
I mean, those are game changers. You know, there's no way anybody can sort of say, oh, well, you know, this guy's always great at Bristol, so that, you know, putting dirt on that surface, it's a whole new world, right? So there's some really fun, exciting stuff I think that's going to happen. I think, you know, kudos to NASCAR. We got this sport back first. Coming out of COVID, you really have to go back and think about that. I mean, we've all kind of moved on from there. We're very excited about Daytona, and it'll be good to see, you know, at least some fans in the stands. But the reality is they did an awesome job of getting our sport back on track, on TV, in a time when no other sport was. And I think that drew in some fans. I think they've got an opportunity, a platform to really leverage this up. I think that's why you're seeing some of the things with Michael Jordan and Pitbull. So honestly, I'm super excited to see what some of these guys do in their new rides. I'm super excited to see you know, just the continuation of the season and last year, and you know, it's always fun. It's always the energy around Daytona is always great. So it'll be a little different for us where we're not right there, but you know, I know there's a lot of loyal fans who wish they were there as well. Hopefully we get back to normal, maybe. Or more normal, maybe mid-year, get back to a track and sort of get that sensory load that we kind of thrive, right? But yeah, hard to say. Hard to say one thing.
But still excited to get a race win.
Yep.
I'm ready to start making race win diecasts again.
Yep.
So real quick, who's your favorite for Daytona 500?
You know, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say Bubba Wallace. He 2 years ago had a really good shot at it. Came in second, right?
Yep.
And you know, Daytona is one of those tracks that you got to survive it to be there at the end, and it's almost anyone's game at the end of it. Just the way that track lays out. But I'm going to say it's Bubba. I got a feeling it's Bubba. Right. Don't know if that's. Who knows?
Hey,
right?
We'll see. It's going to be an exciting Daytona no matter what. So if you want to check out LionelRacing.com. Check out with our dealers.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Chances to potentially win. Great prizes throughout the year. You never know. We're just excited to be back. So thanks for tuning in, fans.
Thank you.